Hi, Domee. It's so great to meet you again. I don't know if you remember, but the last time we met was at the red carpet for the screening of Turning Red in London. And it was just a really, really special moment for me. I'm Steph. I'm the founder of Asians in Britain, which is basically a platform that was created to amplify British Asian voices in hopes of empowering and inspiring Asians in the UK. And it's really such an honor because you're a role model for so many Asian kids out there who are passionate about art and storytelling and drawing. And I also recently found out that you actually started your journey on DeviantArt, which is just so, so cool. Um, Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Let's move on to the more important part. So, Turning Red is a coming of age film that explores the adolescence of Mei Li, a young Chinese Canadian girl. It is also really groundbreaking in a lot of ways. One of them being the fact that, it's the first Pixar film to have a predominantly Asian cast, the first to be directed solely by women, and the first to have an all-female leadership team. I think it'll be great if you can maybe tell us more about the role of representation and diversity in the film, both in terms of the characters and the behind the scenes team.
Yeah. I feel like it all started from the very concept and initial pitch of this film. I always pitched it as this Chinese Canadian girl undergoing magical puberty and getting into, fights with her mom, fights with her own emotions, her own horniness, and ultimately embracing her inner wild beast. And that drew like directly from my own life and my own experience, being that Chinese Canadian tween girl like May, who was like terrified of what's going on with my body, with my relationships, with everything. And I think that should be like, I feel like ideally that should be where, diversity and inclusive stories should start. It should come from the seed of the idea. And that means investing in and bringing up storytellers from diverse backgrounds, because that's just inherently in them, that like passion and need to tell diverse stories. So it doesn't feel like a checkbox that you like check off at the very end of the movie or like later on in production, that like it all just comes organically from the ground up. And for me too, like when it came to casting this movie, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only Asian voice in the room, because I understood in the beginning the pressure of like this film, because there aren't that many films coming from the West that feature, Asian characters, that there was going to be a lot of pressure on this film to like represent an entire group of people. And I didn't want that pressure. So to alleviate some of that pressure, I made sure that a lot of my key collaborators and contributors could also speak to different experiences of being Asian. Like our writer, Julia Cho, is Korean American. Our production designer, Rona Liu, is Chinese American. One of our supervising animators, Patty Kim, is also Korean American. But just like, just making sure that like, okay, like you have this film and it's telling this story, but make sure it's also that you're also covering your own blind spots in that way, and that our film can appeal to and speak to everybody, I think.
Yeah, and I think like we all know that this film means a lot to a lot of us, especially like the Asian community, and clearly like representation in the media really matters. But I've been seeing that despite what the film has achieved in terms of diversity and inclusion, there are some people who have mentioned that, the film is not very relatable to them, especially to those who are not part of the Asian community. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I feel like, well, I can think of that one critic in particular who got a lot of flack for his review.
Yeah.
Um, but he's entitled to his opinion, you know, at least he watched it. Like my thing is like, hey, like you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you only watched films and TV shows and media that had characters that looked exactly like you. I think, you know, like animation, film, it's a window into another world. It's an opportunity to empathize with and understand people and characters that you don't know anything about. It's like a chance to discover something new about yourself and about other people. So why would you limit your life to just watching stuff that you know, that you can identify with? I grew up my whole life like loving so many movies and TV shows that had characters that didn't look like me at all. So I think I feel like the opposite can also happen as well. So I would say give movies a chance, give these movies a chance, give our movie a chance, and then you can form your opinion. But to just like immediately, you know, discount and to like skip over our movie because it doesn't like look like X, Y, and Z. I think I don't know. I just think it's a shame, you know.
Yeah. Um, and obviously like Turning Red is also the first feature film that you have directed. I guess would you be able to tell us more about, you know, some other challenges that you might have faced and how you overcame them?
Yeah. So many. Wow. Directing a feature is really hard. I think I like walked away with a bigger appreciation for all films that are made, bad, even bad ones, because like it's a miracle. It's a small miracle. Anything that is finished and is playing on your screen, it took a Herculean effort by many people to make it happen. So I think I have a greater appreciation for all of that. In terms of specific challenges, the show, I think like, I mean, for me, like one of the biggest challenges was finding the ending for the movie, and specifically finding that satisfying but truthful resolution between May and her mother, Ming. Because I think at the time, I didn't find that resolution yet with my own mother. And it's tricky, especially coming from like an Asian you know, family. Like you don't like, even into adulthood you kind of have this bittersweet love and hate relationship with your immigrant parents, and it's not something that you guys ever have sat down and like aired out your feelings and made up about. um and I remember that scene specifically where like May and her mother are at the portal in the astral plane, like in the bamboo forest. Um, and it's the scene, it's like, it's the goodbye scene. It's them saying goodbye to the relationship that they once had, that closeness that they know isn't going to be there anymore because, you know, because of life, because when you grow up, you just naturally start moving like a little bit further away from your parents. And it's finally the two characters acknowledging that. And we needed Ming to say this like speech at the end that kind of like basically says, I love you, I'm proud of you, go and be awesome on your own, like you know, setting her free almost. But we couldn't have her literally say I love you and I'm proud of you, because that just didn't feel truthful to an Asian mom. So
Yeah.
I just remember me and Julia were just racking our brains and pulling our hairs out over like, what can she say? We tried out so many different lines, and then finally Julia wrote this beautiful amazing little speech that ended with this line, like, the further you go the prouder I'll be, which felt so right. Like I remember when she first pitched it, I was like, that's it, like that is the experience and embodiment of an immigrant parent, and that bittersweetness of like they work so hard to have you be successful only for you to like move away from them. And there's something really sad and beautiful about that truth. And I remember when she like wrote that, I was like, yes, that's it. And then we like showed it to Sandra, and then she killed it, and then we were all crying, and yeah, it was yeah, that was a moment that was the most challenging, but also the most satisfying when we finally solved it.
Yeah. And finally, just one last question. What is one piece of advice you'll give to other people?
One piece of advice to just to anybody, or to like creatives, or
Especially to young Asian creatives.
young Asian creatives. Yeah. Young Asian creatives. Man. Embrace failure. Which is really hard to do because we were, raised our whole lives to be this impossible standard of perfection. But I think that really helped me through this movie because I mean, I'm so proud of the final product, but it was so like through the 4 years we like lived with and worked with a broken movie. But it's like you just have to be comfortable with that, with not with showing your work rough, with trying things and failing and picking yourself up again and trying something else. That's huge. Like every successful thing that's come out, I think there were like at least like 99 failures that led up to that. And they don't like, that's not something that we grew up embracing. Like I mean, at least for me, it was always like, don't make a mistake at all. And we're never taught how to deal with making mistakes, like working through it and understanding, oh, I learned something, I'm going to apply that to my next thing. But it's, like, I feel like for me, I just like sat and I wallowed in like, oh my God, why did I let this happen to myself? But yeah, it's all about embracing failure, man.